Hello, I am Uncle William Jamal Wright,
And I'm Hattie.
and this is our podcast. What are we doing? And
What have we been
what
doing?
have we been doing? Well, I know we're not doing. We're not taking. We do not have any of my niece or nephews running around. That's always weird. Like I always want to say nieces or nephews.
So I just
One
say
is-
nibblies. It's a lot
Yeah,
easier.
but one it's just a singular niece. And then my nephews, they are all back in South Cackalack
I knew
with
you were gonna
my
say that.
family. So, the parental internship is over. Hey, we sent them back. But,
We survived.
yeah,
They did
we
too.
did survive.
All of
They
us
did too,
survived.
yes. So, for those of you that may not know, this past year, we have kind of coined it as our parental
Our parent
internship. And so that is over. We had my nephew, he's my second oldest nephew, Amaje. He came and stayed with us for an entire year,
Yeah.
entire school year, and
From
then
basically August to June.
yeah, and then after he went back to South Carolina,
That same day.
yeah, that same. What
No
were we
rest
thinking?
for the weary. Yeah.
We needed to. We brought my sister, Keisha, her 3 kids, her 2 boys and
One
daughter. We brought them up here and had them stay with us for 2 weeks,
Mhm.
and so it was a good time. I don't get to see them nearly as much as I would like to, so it's kind of a little compromise. I like to bring them up here and let them hang out with Uncle Jomar for a little bit.
Plus, it gives your sisters a chance to just catch their breath. And,
Yeah.
you know, they work so hard and they do such a good job raising the kids that everybody deserves a little break.
Yeah. So what would you say, what was the hardest part for you in having the parental internship?
That's
And we'll kind of break it into 2 parts. So we'll do like the hardest part with Imaje and then like the hardest part with the 3.
okay.
Because it was definitely not the same.
Not the same. I think the hardest part with Amaje was learning. Well, so I think there's also a third dimension that has nothing to do with the kids, and it's like, it has to do with the fact that the kids are there, but it's not kids specific to those children. Like, it could be any kids, and there would still be things.
Yeah.
So I think that learning to set my expectations for this is how exhausted I'm going to be, or this is how much energy I'm going to need to devote, or when I try to set up how much work I can get done on a weekend, like, just having the right expectations,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that I did not have the right expectations originally. I think that was probably the hardest
in
thing.
terms of like your energy or just like how draining it would be?
Well, that's energy, how draining it would be, but also, you know, if I need to get chores done, like, we kind of had a discussion about this
Yeah,
at
I was
the
gonna bring
beginning,
that up,
yeah. But just like, I've now doubled, sometimes tripled the amount of laundry I have to do, doubled the amount of groceries I have to get. Things get dirty much faster, so I have to clean a lot more, you know, just putting things away, making sure everybody has the things that they need, and not just physical energy in doing those tasks and doing more of them, because now there's more people creating more mess, but also the mental energy of, okay, I have what I need, does Will have what he needs, now does Amaje have what he needs? Amaje probably doesn't know what he needs. I need to think, you know, so it's not just the physical higher workload, it's like a mental task load as well. So I think just setting my expectations for how much time and energy that would take. Once I had my expectations set, it was not as big a deal.
Mm-hmm.
But when I had these grandiose plans of getting all this other stuff done, and that never happened, then I would feel very frustrated.
Gotcha.
And so I think there's that dimension of you and I learning to be a team player and take all those things instead of them just being Hattie's responsibility. They became our responsibility.
Yes.
And I think you did a really good job once I brought it up that this was a problem for me of, you know, noticing when is the dishwasher full and just putting it away instead of waiting for me to do it. Or, you know, because in the past, when it was just the two of us, I'm the one that likes things clean. It was really easy for me to just do those things, and it's barely any different to do them for me as it is to do them for the two of us.
Yes.
So I'm not trying to say that in a way of like, oh, he was oblivious to all the work. Like, that's not at all what I'm trying to say. It's just we had a situation that worked for us in which it was mostly me doing those things because I had the majority of the preference. So yeah, I would say that was the hardest thing, not having to do with the kids. Like, that was specific to kids in general, but not specific to which kid it was.
Yeah, I would say in that respect, like, for me, it wasn't, like, it was definitely more difficult, and I kind of understood that, like, the importance of getting, like, a workout in, at least for me, and, like, finding time to, like, do that, because that, like, really helps manage my stress. And when we did have, like, the situation where, like, just for lack of, like, I wasn't doing as much as I should have been doing, and, like, I needed to contribute more. And I think when we kind of had that discussion, like, I kind of did, or at least I think I did. I tried to, like, be more conscious of, like, things that, like, I could do to help. And it's not like, before, it's not like I didn't do them. Like, I would do them every now and then. It's just, like, the conscious effort to, like, share the responsibility of everything that needs to get done. Like, making sure that everything that needs to get done gets done. And even, like, I would say for the most part, all of this, like, and I think I told you this, like, you were so worried about, like, everything, like, making sure everything was, like, taken care of. And I'm like, have a little bit of faith in that, like, we're not, like, if you don't make food one night, like, we're not gonna starve. And, like, I will make sure that he, like, has dinner. And it's just, like, different things like that, like, when you've never had a kid before, that's what happens. And so that was definitely, for me, it was just, like, specifically with the Maje, it was managing my expectations of, like, what I want to be done, and how I want it to be done, as opposed to, like, what...
When you say what you want to be done and how you want
like,
it to be done,
just in terms
regards of his performance and
yeah,
stuff?
like, his performance and his, like, work ethic and, like, his attitude. Because I would say, like, just for me playing, like, football, like, and being in, like, a very structured environment of, like, everything, like, if somebody says jump, like, he's asked how high, and when do they want you to jump. And
right, there's no
like,
ifs, ands, or buts. There's no excuses made. There's no...
And so, like, growing up and, like, going to college and being in, like, that type of environment, and even in high school, like, being on a high school football team, and, like, there were all these things where it's just, like, I'm going to tell you this once, and I expect you to get it, and I don't expect there to be there's no pushback. And so there was definitely some, like, moments where I wouldn't necessarily say there were pushbacks. There was just, I'm in a new place. I'm going to school with new people. And so, like, you may want these things from me, and you may expect these things from me, but, like, I'm not there yet. Like, and I think as we got through, like, the year, like, he definitely started to get there, and I would say the transition definitely, like, it got smoother.
A lot smoother. A lot smoother, yeah.
So it was just, like, just managing my expectations and not getting frustrated. And, like, I would talk to, like, people at work and stuff, like, hey, yeah, my nephew's here, but, like, just not getting frustrated, because when it's not just us that are adjusting, or it's not just me or us that is adjusting.
He's adjusting too, right? And, like, he has plenty of his own, like, I miss my old friends, I miss my mom, I miss my brother. You know, I'm happy to be here, but I'm also sad to be here. You know, and so he has, I was really proud of how he handled the situation overall. Yeah, so I think in terms of what was the hardest for me, specifically related to Amaje, it's kind of similar to what you mentioned about managing your expectations, but more about relating to him in a way that would motivate him. Because, I work with kids all the time in gymnastics, but they're usually self-motivated. Like, they're there to do the sport because they like it. Mm-hmm. And if there's something preventing them, it's usually because they're scared. Right? They're scared of this new scary skill. They're afraid they're going to get hurt. They're afraid they're going to fall. It's usually a fear-based thing. But under that, they're still intrinsically, I enjoy doing gymnastics. I like to get better. I want to do this, but I have fear.
Yes.
And when it comes to school stuff, my brothers, less so than I, but I would still describe all of my brothers as very academically gifted and motivated. Mm-hmm. Some less so than others. I was probably the one that was most intrinsically motivated. Mm-hmm. So it was hard for me to also wrap my head around the concept of, like, it's not fun to do this. Like, just knock it out, and just, I grew up with the whole, I have practice all the time. I don't have time to procrastinate or time to do other things. Once I'm home, I gotta do my homework, like, right away. Mm-hmm. Right? And that's fine because I enjoy it. I'm good at it. Easy, done. Right? So trying to get into the mindset of someone that, regardless of how good they are, maybe doesn't enjoy it at all. Or maybe they might be a little bit behind in some areas, and that makes it even harder and even less enjoyable. And they've transitioned from an environment where I don't exactly know what the arrangement was for homework, but now it's to a place where we have really high expectations, and that's not at all what he's used to. It was clear that our expectations from the beginning were not what he was used to. And that's neither a good thing nor a bad thing, it's just a difference. Yeah. And so, learning how to see things from his perspective and motivate him to, meet us some way, like...
In the middle, yeah.
Yeah, because I do realize, not every child is going to be a mini Hattie that, like, loves doing these things. So how can I get him to do what he needs to do, and yet also maybe help him learn to like it a little bit, but not burn him out or, like, have him hate every single second and just resent all the time. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, so that was probably the hardest thing for me with Amaje. But I thought it was really easy. He's a really easygoing, fun kid. Like, I thought it was really easy to develop I don't want to say friendship, because it's not like we were friends, but it's not like he's my son. Just develop a good relationship, where I enjoy spending time with him, he enjoys spending time with me. I think that was pretty easy from the get-go, and so I think that made things a lot smoother, that there wasn't any type of, even with you, I don't think there was, like, big conflicts.
No, I would definitely say, like, it's funny, like, we definitely have, like, a good rapport, but anytime, like, you spend a lot of time with somebody, like, I bet there are definitely a number of things that kind of, from his perspective, like, that I did that got on his nerves.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, like, so, like, so there, like, I feel like there was that, like, little bit of tension. Mm-hmm. But I always, like, whenever I felt like there was that type of tension, or, like, I felt that, like, he was, like, getting frustrated, or I felt like I was getting frustrated, mm-hmm. like, I would be like, hey, like, this is why I'm doing this, mm-hmm. and kind of try to help him understand, like, first of all, why am I frustrated with this situation, and, like, why he may be frustrated with it, and, like, why am I doing it this way? Because I think this generation of kids, like, why is such an important, like, aspect.
I think for any kid, right?
Yeah.
Like, I remember being a kid. I mean, as an adult now, I look at kids, and it's like, oh, they have no idea what they're doing. But as a child, you don't think that. You think, like, I remember, maybe I can only talk about my own experience, but when I was a child, I felt like just as much of a conscious, good decision-making, logical, observant person that I do now. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I have grown a lot, but as a child, I don't have the self-awareness to be like, I have no idea what's going on, right? You think that you make good decisions. You think that you understand the world around you. You want to understand the world around you. You want to be independent, you know, and so from that perspective, it's just like being an adult. I would not appreciate someone coming to me and being like, you need to do this, this, and this, with no explanation why. Right?
Well, and I think that goes back to me with the structure. Like, somebody with an authority figure, like, tells me to do something. I don't need to know why. Like, I trust that, like, the authority figure is going to, like, tell, unless it's just, like, something blatantly wrong. Just like,
I also feel like with that type of thing in the structure, though, you only need to do one cycle of it before you get why, right? Your coach is like, you need to do this, this, and this, and you understand, he's giving me this feedback so that we can win later on. Or
yeah,
so that I can get better at this,
like,
this,
the first cycle, I didn't question, like, why.
Because that was the culture, because all the other kids already had that in place. It wasn't like the very first time anyone had ever played football ever.
But it wasn't like this isn't the first time I've ever, like, hung out with a Maje and been like, you need to do something. Like, I've, like, it's all, like, there's always been situations where I've been, like, informing him that he needs to do stuff. And it's never been, like, a question of why.
In the past? Yeah. So you're saying that there was more resistance to the structure, the power dynamic than there was in the past?
No. I think there definitely was, because, like, we spent longer time together.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, like, just in general, we are moving to a point in society where, like, the reason why you do something is often, in a lot of ways, more important than, like, how or why, like, how you're doing it. And so, like, now, like, I think, for me, like, it was important to me to explain to him why, like, we're doing certain things.
Mm-hmm. And so that was the hardest thing for you, you're saying?
No, that was just an adjustment. And I would also go back and say, like, for me, like, when I was a kid, I would say outside of, like, a couple of just, like, bad, like, years where I just, like, was misbehaving, like, there was never a time where I was just, like, I needed an adult or somebody to explain to me why they were doing something. Yeah, it's just, I think it's just a little bit of a different in generations, and a generational thing and a societal thing. But, like, even now as an adult, like, I definitely ask why a lot more than I did as a kid.
That's funny, because I don't really explicitly remember asking why, but I do remember many times, like, my parents saying, we're doing this because da-da-da-da, and then they give the reason. But on the flip side, I also remember a lot of times, in moments of frustration, they'd be like, because I said so, you know? And so, but I think that goes back to an established power dynamic from the time we were very, very small, that, you know, we knew that once it got to that level of tone of voice, it's like, things are going to get much worse, so I'm just going to comply. Like, I've learned this lesson, and some of us took longer to learn that lesson than others. But, so I think that part of what you're describing with the Maje is, you know, he respects you as an uncle, but not necessarily as the person that gets to decide.
Yes.
Right? And so I think part of that was him adjusting to the new life where you are the ones, like, we're the new people in charge of his life. And in the past, we weren't those people. And the people that were in charge may have had different ways of communicating or different expectations, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and so,
it was just different.
Yeah. So in response to the question, though, that we posed originally about the hardest thing for you with having a Maje, what would that be?
Yeah, I think I go back to just managing, like, it was just me managing my expectations. Gotcha. And I think by the end of the year, like, we had gotten into a happy medium where, like, I think my expectations and his expectations of what was expected and, like, what we were, like, in the routine of what we were doing daily, like, it was understood. And I think that goes for, like, you and I as well. Like, our relationships, and, like, these are, like, in the beginning, before Maje, we had different expectations. And then there was a transition to kind of meeting in the middle of, like, this is kind of the new normal.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to describe it. And I think that kind of goes back to my first point was, there's stuff that has to do with each particular child, and then there's stuff that has nothing to do with the individual children and just kind of the whole flow of life.
Situation.
Yeah. So what about for the other 3 nibblings? What was the most challenging aspect for you?
I would say the most challenging aspect with them was just that, like, for me, it seemed like there was a very distinct, like, the first week, like, this is a new situation. We're going to be
excited.
like, we're going to be on, like, our best behavior. And then kind of the second week, all right, we have been around here for a week now. Like, let's push the boundaries a little bit and see what
we can get away with.
Yeah, see what we can push this thing to. And we, like, it was only 2 weeks, but it was definitely, like, the first week, I think, like, their behavior, and they're kids, so I'm not, like,
right.
They
5,
weren't bad.
7, and 8. Or 5,
they weren't
7,
bad.
5, 8, and 9, I mean. Yeah.
They weren't bad, but, like, they definitely, like, that last week they were pushing the envelope to see where it could go to.
Yeah.
And that was the, like, most difficult part with them, in that, like, and also managing, like, it was something that I expected, but also managing just, like, the workload of having, like, meetings and stuff, and, like, preparing for, like, having a babysitter here, to, like, having to, like, also work while also having 3 kids that, like, you want to spend time with, as much time as you can with them while they're here. So those 2 aspects of, like, them getting more comfortable here, and kind of letting more of their, just being more comfortable here, and that, like, turning into, like, more some behavioral, like, boundary pushing, and then also just managing my work obligations and making sure I'm taking care of everything.
Yeah. That's interesting that you say that, because for me, what was hardest with the most recent 3, again, not bad kids at all, but was deciding when I felt like I should intervene with discipline. So with Amaje, I felt very much, after the first 2 weeks, it's like, you're here under our household, so it's our rules, and this is how it needs to be for all of us to have things go smoothly. But something I struggle with at the gymnastics gym a lot too is, I have a certain level of behavior below which I will not tolerate. Yeah. And the girls very much know, like, if I'm like, this is unacceptable, it's a big issue. However, there's a big buffer there, because at the gym, sometimes I don't feel like it's my place to discipline in certain ways. So as long as the girls are respectful to me and each other, like, if they're going to be off wasting time, I can tell them, ladies, we need to get on task, right? But to some extent, I'm going to be working with the children that want to be working. And if other kids are off wasting time, I'll make sure they're not going to get injured. But after 2 or 3 times, I'm not going to be policing them any more than that, because it's a waste of my time. But I do have I definitely have the conception at the gym that the coaches think of me, the coaches and the gymnasts, they all know that I'm the one with the long rope, but as soon as it gets to a certain point, it's like, everything's over. But, so it's like I'm a pushover in some sense, but I'm also, like, much more strict, like, once it gets to that final. Yeah. And so that's kind of what I struggled with these 3, is that, they're not here for so long that I feel like, some of these behaviors are just kids being kids, it's not a big deal. Whereas if they were staying for a long period of time, I'd be like, this is not acceptable. We can't be pushing the boundaries like this. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's just one of those, like, pick my battles, do I just roll with it? Because this is really just kid behavior. It's not and not that I felt like I couldn't discipline them if I needed to, they're very receptive at the times they needed time out, and, you know, they understood, they learned, and Nazir especially did a really good job of bouncing back and not being all upset continually the whole day, you know, and so I told him I was proud of him for that, because last year he had a tendency that if one thing went wrong, then it was like the whole day was a wash. Whereas this year, I think he did a lot better of like, okay, I had a mistake, I'm just going to let it go, because everybody else has let it go.
Yeah.
And move on with a good attitude. Anyway, that's a digression, but yeah, just figuring out when, like, to step in with the behavioral. So, not that they needed a lot of behavioral issues.
So what would you say was the best part?
The whole thing.
The whole thing.
So I would say the best part. So can we do it in different
Sure.
sections again? Okay, so the best part for me with Amaje was watching his growth and maturity.
Yeah.
I think and just knowing that I contributed in some small way to that, I think he became so much more self-sufficient, so much more aware of things. You know, we trusted him to make pancakes, and he turned off the thing every single time. I mean, at some point, I've showed him a million times. I've talked to him a million times. He's got to spread his baby wings and try to fly. And, you know, he came home from the bus every single time, had his key. The one time he didn't have his backpack, he remembered where the spare key was, even though it was almost a whole year since we put it there, you know, and he did a great job, and I think that it was also great watching him mature with his homework. And like I would always be so tickled when little things that I would say or do would, like, 2 weeks later seep into his behavior. You're like, yes. And just it was just really rewarding. I think he gained a lot of skills, like life skills, and also I think his academic performance increased. But I think more than that, he learned to apply himself, you know, he learned to give a good effort the first time, he learned to actually study, you know, and so I think he learned a lot of good skills, and just watching that process and being involved in that process was really, really rewarding for me. Like, I'll never forget, when he first would do his math homework, he would write it all in one tiny little space, and he does not have neat handwriting, so it's like, what is this? He couldn't even tell me what it was, you know? And so, of course, when we're trying to go back and see what we did wrong, there's no hope, because it's like... So, I worked with him really hard on the concept of, you know, we have plenty of paper, we have enough paper, take as much space as you need, we can always staple more pages on, you know, like, let's write it out on the line, let's move to the next line, like, you know, we're doing things with order of operations, so, like, let's draw this, and that equals to this, and let's stay organized, you know, and watching him... He came home with a quiz one day that he got 6 out of 6 right. He hands it to me, and I see, like, things written in little lines, and the answers with a box around them, and I was just like, oh my goodness, like, this is wonderful, right? But, which, you can do great math without doing those things, but just to see him kind of see the rationale in some of our strategies was really rewarding. But kind of on that topic, going back to things that bothered him that we would do, so... It was really funny to me, because a lot of times we would talk with him, and, like, I could see that he started to understand the logic and where we were coming from with a lot of things. But some things he didn't, and it was, like, his personal preference, and that's what cracked me up. So, for instance, he very much understood the organizational thing. He had issues implementing it in other ways, such as with his folders and papers and everything. But he also had this thing where he would never erase fully. Like, he would just erase a little bit, but you could still definitely see what was written there before. And he would write on top, and we would always be like, erase it all the way.
Yes.
You know, and I remember, like, the last week of school, when you were at your student-athlete development retreat, and he was there, it was just me and him. I'm, like, telling him to erase, and he's like, oh, you guys always want me to erase it all the way, but it doesn't even matter. You know, like, he just had an outburst of, like, I will never get on that train. Like, you guys are crazy. Yeah.
So perfect.
Yes, and it was just so funny for me to see, like, the things where he was like, yeah, that makes sense, I'll hop on that train, versus, like, nope, that one is speeding right by and I'm never getting on. So, yeah.
Oh, I hope for one day.
It was really rewarding, just the whole process. How about for you?
Like, it was definitely his growth, but also just, like,
his ability to like make friends and like kind of create like a little group or network of people that like he can like be a part of and kind of he kind of just created his own little niche even at school. Like there was a friend's birthday party. A couple of friends had some birthday parties. One was at a bowling alley, and like it wasn't very like it was just kind of an open invite, and like some different people got invited. And Amaje like really wanted to go, and he kind of took it upon himself to like talk to his friend and be like, "Hey, like I would like to come." And he went and like talked to the mom and said, "Hey, like I heard you guys are like going to go bowling. Like I would like to come." And he kind of took the initiative of like building his friend group and like going out and making friends. And he did the power of basketball, and he just like. He definitely, I would say, made the best out of what I can only imagine was a difficult situation for him. And he, like, made the most of it. He made a lot of good friends. And I think ultimately, like, he stayed true to being, like, a good person, it's just who he is. And he was, like, he went over to his teacher's house. Like, his teacher, like, wanted some help with designing their field day shirts, and like he came home and was like, "Hey, my teacher like really no." He called me.
I thought you went with him the first time
Well,
because we weren't sure if anybody else was going to be there.
That was the second time.
Oh, that was the second
time.
time.
So the first day he like called me while I was at like.
Oh yeah, he was still at school.
Yeah, he was still at school. He was like, "Hey, like my teacher would like want some help doing these field day T-shirts. Can I go over to her house and help her?" And I was like, "Sure, like you're more than welcome to have help, but like you got to come home and do your homework and get everything done that you need to get done." And he came home and got everything done, and like he went over there and he helped for 2 hours, and then the next day, like there was some technical difficulties and she needed help this next day, and he called like he's like, "Hey, like I want to go and continue to help." And it was just like...
Same thing with getting his work done, you know?
Yeah, like, he definitely, like... I think his teachers definitely really appreciated that. And, like... Just to see his growth and, like, the kind person that he was. Like, from the beginning to the end. And just being himself.
Yeah, it was always... Something I noticed from the beginning is... He's very much likes to help and wants to help.
Yes.
You know, I'd be making dinner. Can I help? Can I help? Or I'd be, you know, emptying the groceries, emptying the dishwasher. Can I help? Can I help? You know, and it's just, as a kid, my parents would have to, like, twist my arm to get me to do those. You know what I mean? Like, yes. I would do them because I knew what was expected of me. But I didn't, sorry, Mom and Dad, I maybe didn't have the...
It's intrinsically motivated.
Yeah, I wasn't intrinsically motivated to be like, can I help you, Dad?
You want to do the homework, but not help with the dishes.
I mean, I didn't mind putting them away, but like, I remember when we would get the groceries in the car, and my dad would come home and be like, "Okay, I need help unloading them." I'd be like, oh. You know, it wasn't I wasn't offering to help him. He had to ask. So he's a sweetheart, you know.
He's really definitely a little sweetheart, a little bitty charmer in the making. But it's funny to like think about like there are so many ways that like we are like the same. And, like,
so many ways. So many ways. Oh my god, the best. So this is only positive, but the best thing not the best thing, but the funniest thing to me would be to see you, like, getting on his case about something that you also do, and then you be like, well, then start doing better at that thing, too.
Well, you have to set a good example. You can't get on to somebody.
No, I completely agree. I just thought it was funny that you would get on his case in the first place. So, yeah, it was great.
Well, and I think a lot of times when I got into this case, because I'm like, this could turn out to be, like, a very bad habit if you keep this up. Like, there would be times where, like, as a kid, like, I never could keep up with a wallet. Like, through high school, I lost my wallets. Like, even when I got to college, like,
it was a struggle for me to keep my wallet, and like, and there's still times where like I will lose my wallet from time to time. So like I want to impress upon him the importance of like keeping up with stuff or like being organized. And so it's like if I can drive this home with you now,
right, it's only going to save you in the future. Yes, yes.
So like there are little things like that where I'm just like, yep, you are your like uncle's nephew, and I'm like, I gotta prevent you from yourself. I gotta save you from yourself. Because I've been down this road.
The other way that was so funny is you guys are so competitive and so, like, verbal about it. Like, our family is very competitive, too, and I would say we're verbal about it in some ways, but not nearly to the extent that you and Imajay are. And it would be hilarious to me when we're playing games, and, like, as soon as one of you, it doesn't matter which, gets the good hands, the trash talking starts, right? And it's the same type of stuff that you would say, he would say, right? And, like, it was just like a mini you. I couldn't express it any other way. It was so funny.
Only difference is I win like a lot more than you.
Sometimes, yeah, you won a lot more than he did. Because you actually organized your cards. Oh, he could not understand that concept.
No, he could not. It was so frustrating.
Yeah, he would get so frustrated with him. Oh man. Oh, he's so funny. So moving on to your favorite part about having the nibblings, the other three.
I would like it was different for all three of them. I would say, like I would say Serenity. I haven't spent as much time with her.
She's so young.
Yeah, and it was just good to like. The best part was spending time with her and like letting her know that like, as with the rest of my nephews, like she is loved and that like I'm here for her and that like I want the best for her. And like it was just like some good little time. She's definitely like not one to hold her tongue. So like she will like she will let you know what's on her mind.
Yeah, she's got two bigger older brothers and she holds her own. I would put it that way.
And
she lets you know that she is there.
And so it was like the best part about like hanging with her is seeing like her personality kind of come through, and just being around her and like just being around Serenity. I would say for Nazi, who's the middle one, just seeing his growth from one year to the next, it was
amazing.
Yeah, it was almost like
a whole new kid.
He still had some things that he still did like that were the same, but it was like I could task him with something and he would get it done. He remembers stuff from last year and like they weren't an issue like this year. Mm-hmm. And it was just amazing to see his growth because like he is the middle child and like no matter like who you are as the middle child, like there can always be kind of a fight for like attention, but like it didn't seem like he was fighting for any attention. He was just kind of at more ease with himself, and just kind of went along the path. With Sincere, who's the oldest of my sister's three, just the best part about him is kind of seeing like he is like seeing the parts of me that like are kind of like in him. Like he is very competitive. He wants like he's very smart and like just seeing how like similar and also how very much disalike we are. Like he will sit up here and like read. Like when I was his age, like you weren't catching me reading. But like I would be outside like playing all the time, which is brother and sister. They always want to go outside.
Yeah.
But he's much more of an inside like person, which like. But he's still very competitive. He likes to play basketball, which I love to play basketball. So just
Well,
like
he's competitive in everything he does. Playing
Yeah.
card games, you know, whatever it happens to be.
and so just like seeing the similarities and also like the differences of him and I, and like kind of like growing like that bond and just kind of encouraging him to like continue to be himself, and continue to like just continue to grow, because he definitely like as the oldest, like he's gonna like set the example for his younger brother and sister, and just the best part was just getting like kind of very similar to Serenity, in that like getting to know him like more
Mm-hmm.
than like because just being able to spend time with him.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that was probably my favorite part too, because just getting to know them really well, and do fun things like go to the park, play with sidewalk chalk. You know, I'm just a big kid at heart, and so doing all of those things was really fun to see them in their element. You know, they're giggling, they're laughing, they're joking, and just kind of, that was my favorite part. Or my other favorite part, so I read to Amaje every night, and I also read to Takesha's 3 every night.
Mm-hmm.
And, oh man, it just made my heart burst when it would be like, please, can we read a few more pages? Or like, are we going to read tonight? Oh, I don't want to not read tonight. You know, or like anytime I'd be like, no, we can't do it tonight. And then they're like, oh, you know, all upset. And just knowing that they, like for Amaje, I don't think he was very interested at first. But once we got into the books, I think he was very interested. And so kind of teaching him that, you know, books have this whole world of opportunity, and getting him at least a little more interested in reading than he was before. That was really rewarding to me. Whereas Keisha's 3 are much more intrinsically reading motivated than Amaje was. Sincere the most, like you said, he would choose to read.
Yeah.
Nazir and Serenity less so, but I think that's also because their reading skills are being developed.
Yeah.
Even though Serenity is not even in first grade and she can already read a lot of books. That's really impressive. But they also enjoyed reading the stories, you know, and we would talk about, you know, what might happen next, how do you think this character is feeling, you know, and just seeing their little imaginations go is probably my favorite thing. But that happens in all sorts of kid playtime stuff at the Notaseum, or Notasium, I guess I should say, at the museum, the parks, the pools, and everything. So yeah, that just watching the little giggly selves,
little precious moments.
Yeah. So, or when they just watching them kind of also step outside their own bubble, you know, and oh yeah, I need to bust my dishes, or like, oh yeah, I need to do this, this, and this, or Amelia needs some food, not just me, you know, like, so yeah, that was so cute.
Well, also just seeing Serenity kind of get over her fear of dogs. She was not like, I don't know, like she's 5, so she is like still adjusting to. Like, there was an adjustment to having Amelia here with us, and her first
and to put it in perspective, Serenity is very tall for a 5-year-old, but very thin. So she's 40 pounds, and Amelia is 60 pounds. I would say Serenity's head is here, and Amelia's back is right here, and her head is here. So, like, Amelia is large stature, compared to Serenity. Yeah.
But yeah, so like, there was definitely Serenity like overcoming her fear, and like being like, this is something that like I want to do, and I'm gonna do everything in my power to like make this an enjoyable situation. I was very proud of her.
Which is really hard for a 5-year-old, yeah. And even like 2 or 3 days in, can I take Amelia outside? Can I take Amelia outside? You know, she'd hold her by the leash, and anytime she needed to sit, she'd be like, sit! You know, doing her snap, getting her to sit, and Amelia might be walking over somewhere, and so it'd be like, this way! You know, she had no fear about being aggressive. I'll put it that way. Once she finally got over the fear of Amelia, she very much realized, I need to be the one in control, and to be in control with this large dog, I need to be the bigger, louder, and more aggressive one. And she had no problem stepping into that bigger, louder, more aggressive role, and I was proud of her.
Yeah.
Yeah, watching them with Amelia was really cute, too. But, so, yeah, what would you say was the biggest, like, takeaway from this experience?
So I would say the biggest takeaway for me, and this kind of like, I went home this past weekend, and I had to talk to my uncle or cousin Troy. We all call him Cleve, but he just like, we were out there like talking in the front yard, and he was just like, like he was specifically talking about like my grandmother. He's like, make sure you take care of your grandmother, because you only get one of her. And I think just for me, like the biggest takeaway is just make sure you like try and spend as much time you can with your family members and create as many moments and like be present with them. Because I think like I enjoyed having them here, and hopefully in the future we can continue to find a way to like spend time with them, because it was definitely like they're the only nieces and nephews I got, so it was enjoyable to like expose them to like kind of my life and like to North Carolina and like different things. I took them to my dorm, my freshman dorm, Blackwell, on East Campus, and like had them ride the school bus. I took them to the Mary Lou Center. And I took them over to like the African American Studies building on campus, and just like exposing them to different things and sharing my life with them. That was kind of my biggest takeaway.
Nice.
What was yours?
Well, I would say there might be two, but one is something I've always like known, and that's that I love kids. So that wasn't really a takeaway, because it wasn't like, whoa, I didn't know this, but it was, just something that was reinforced.
Yeah.
And definitely, like the whole decision when we were deciding should we have Amaje stay with us or not, like both of us were not like should we or shouldn't we. It was more just, how can we make this work? There's no really question about it. It was just, what are the mechanics going to be to make this the best situation for everybody? But just, going through that process and it turning out as well as it did, honestly, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting there to be a lot more difficulty than there was. So I was really impressed with you and with the whole situation that we created, that it wasn't smooth sailing the entire time.
Wasn't.
But it wasn't nearly as rocky as it could have been.
No.
And a lot of credit goes to Amaje for that, And,
yeah.
So that...
I think it's a large portion of the credit goes to Amaje, because we weren't like... I particularly wasn't going to back down from the expectations weren't going to change very much.
No, and they shouldn't have.
I think he
as the
rose more.
Needs to stay
he rose more to the
and I absolutely agree with that. But he had two people that were. It was clear that we were willing to be there for him and what he needed. Do you know what I mean? Like, I could see there being a lot more different problems than there was. But the other takeaway for me was a little bit of what you were teasing me about earlier, of like, no one's gonna starve, like just the concept of everything is crazy and everything is everywhere and I have all this anxiety, but things are gonna be okay. And even if they feel that they're not okay, they're still very okay.
Yeah.
Just like, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture of things. Everybody's clothed and fed and we have a roof over our heads and we're alive enough to be yapping and annoying, so, like, obviously something's working right, so, not that anybody was really annoying, but it was more of a takeaway for me of, like, all the things that I stress about and get concerned about, you kind of just have to let that go at some point, because it's either, so I don't really know what I'm trying to say, but
Yeah, things will take care of
things
themselves.
will take care of themselves.
And like
feeling like I can trust
yeah.
you to take care of the things that need taken care of when I can't do it. Feeling like Amaje and the kids, you know, oftentimes on the weekends we'd sleep in and the 3 nibblings would be up, but it's not like anyone's dying,
Yeah.
you know, and or that there's any issues with, you know, behavior between each other, and everything's fine, you know, so
yeah,
it was good.
All right, well, is that about it?
Yeah.
Anything else?
We earned our parental internship. We got the stamp of approval. Kids are all alive. That's
can we give ourselves
the
the stamp of approval?
Yes, I just did.
Well, I will say this. I'm not willing to give myself a stamp of approval, but I will say
Why
this.
not?
But if for some reason the company who we did our parental internship with decides that like they want to hire us for another year or do another like full-time gig, I'd be like, hey, I'm open to like doing this internship
There you go.
again.
There you go.
So like, yeah,
Too. I like that. Very nice.
you know, like the interns, you don't really get to make the decision if you get hired or not. Like it's all up to the company.
True.
Like, the intern, what intern doesn't think they did a good job? Like,
I think there might be a lot.
oh really?
Yeah.
All the interns I know, I'm pretty sure have heard of. Like, I feel like they think they do a good job. And it's always up to the company though, like whether they'll get that offer to come back full time or do another year, or maybe you need to go do something else. And with that said, we're gonna go do something else and get out of here. Go enjoy life without kids. Deuces. I'm not gonna say that's what we're doing.
Oh, and that's what we're doing. That's what we've been doing.
Fail.
Too tired, I couldn't even remember.
Oh my goodness. What are we gonna do with all this free time?
That is a good question.